Hi, welcome back to the free 6-part technique video series where I'm just sharing a little bit of my technique with you guys every month. This is video number 5, and today I'll be showing you some of my favorite ways to use sand and limestone powder to create really awesome textures in your paintings. If you're new here, hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Molly Suplee. I'm an abstract artist based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I work out of my basement art studio. I'm a full-time mom, part-time artist at this point. We have a daughter and a little one on the way that's due on Halloween, actually. So I'm going to try to get the video 6. Usually I'm releasing these videos at the end of every month, but that's not going to happen for the 6th video. So you'll get that one early in October, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks before baby boy makes his appearance. But thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this texture video. Before I get into the demonstration, I just wanted to talk about a couple of ways that you can use your limestone powder and sand to build that depth and texture in your paintings. So with limestone powder, you can either use it as a textured base by mixing it with an acrylic medium or gesso or paint, or you can use it as a layer on top of a painting that you've already created. So I will show you both techniques. And then as far as sand, same thing here. You can use it to create a textured base. It's going to be a finer texture because, of course, sand is so fine. So is the limestone powder, but you'll see the difference. Or you could sprinkle it onto wet paint and sand it down later to give a neat effect as well. So let's get into the demo. So just grab a little cup and your matte medium, paint color of choice. I'm doing yellow ochre, and then your limestone powder. So just grab a couple of spoonfuls of limestone. I don't have exact measurements. I just eyeball everything. And then you're gonna pour in some matte medium, just enough to get it nice and fluid. And then take a little bit of your paint. And then just pour it on. And it's a nice thick mixture here. I prefer to do this on a wooden panel because it is very textured. So you'll see some cracking if you do this on stretched canvas. We're going to let that dry, and we will come back to that. For the sand demo, I'm going to show you how I sprinkle sand into my wet paint on just a little canvas I had started a while ago, just for demonstration purposes. So I'm just going to take a little bit of paint here. I'm just using a soft body acrylic. It's a nice rich color. And then if I want to give this a little bit of texture, I just sprinkle a little bit of sand right into it. And it's that easy. I know it's nothing crazy, and once that dries, it can give a neat effect as is, or you could take acrylic ink and pour it over top, and it will kind of lay in a cool way over top of the sand. So it's very versatile. There's many different ways you can do it. So that's one way. On this same canvas, I'm going to show you how to pour limestone mixture and use it as an additional layer instead of just as a base. So I'm going to start with some water. Mix it with a little bit of medium. I prefer this consistency to be pretty thick, not as watery. So I usually start with the liquid with the water and the medium. So I'm getting enough. I'm making as much fluid as I want. And then I'll add in the limestone powder to get the right consistency. It's still a little too watery. Sometimes you need a lot more than you think you do. Let's try that. That should be plenty. So that's pretty thick, but I still like that. So let's go ahead and pour this on. And if it's a little too thick, it will crack. So just keep that in mind. So I'm just gonna add some water here to that. And you can blend it with wet paint that you already have down. Which is what I'm doing here. So we'll let that dry and come back to it. And I'll show you one more technique with it. Now that the layers are dry, let's take a look. This was the limestone powder mixture with the yellow paint. So this would be where you're using it as a base texture. Again, I just did it on the wooden panel. And you can see it dried really nicely. There is some cracking, but that's okay. You can keep layering over top. I don't mind the cracking so much because it's kind of cool when it can peel back and expose the layers underneath, but this is just the base layer, so it's not too big of a deal. But we didn't lay the limestone powder on really thick, so it didn't crack in most places. But this just adds a really cool base that you can layer collage paper on top of, or paint, pastel, crayon, anything you want. So I like how that turned out. And then I'll show you what you can do over both of these. This one was really cool. So we used the sand with fluid paint here. And you can see the sand just makes a nice little texture, not too thick. And you can always sand it back as well if you want. While that was still wet, I had poured the cement type, the limestone powder mixture into it. And I love how that dried. Now you have some cracking here. So if this was your final layer, you really want to make sure you seal that well with a varnish. I would do a brush on varnish. Or you could even layer transparent collage paper over top. But it's just really earthy and cool. I love that dark line that happened there. So it really feels like it's from the earth, like you're looking at rock or clay or because I guess essentially you are looking at stuff from the earth limestone powder and sand, but it just gives a neat effect when mixed into paint. So I'll show you here. We can add another layer on top of this and let it dry so you can see how paint interacts with a base, a textured base like this. So I made up some natural paint with the earth pigments. So we're going to take that. I'm just going to do it right on here. Mix a little bit of that. I kind of want an earthy color, so I'm going to take two opposing colors and blend them together. I do really like this one. Whoops. It's a lot more than I wanted. Actually, let's just go with it. We're just going to go with it. And you want to pay attention to the surface you're working on. My table slanted a certain way, so you may have to put something underneath of your canvas if all the paint's kind of going one way. Just depends on what surface you're working on. That's pretty cool. We're going to see how that dries. I'll show you once that's dry. Same thing with this one. I love how that's going. So I was just going to do something up here. Now this is already, is there a coffee filter? Yeah, coffee filter. Pretty much this process, but with a coffee filter layered over top. So that's what's going on here. So I can show you how you can layer on top of that. I'm going to keep that wet because I don't want it to be this blue. I want it to kind of blend pretty well. More of like an earthy blue is what I'm going for. Take some water so there's not such a harsh line. Just kind of spray it. Okay, so we'll see how that dries. But really just layering wet paint over top of your limestone and sand texture is a great way to just add some earthiness and uniqueness, I guess, to your piece, for lack of better words. So we'll see how these dry and we'll come back to them to finish up the demo. Let's take a look at the results. Here we have the yellow textured base with the paint pour over top of the texture. And it's really cool because you can see the higher pieces of limestone don't grab that fluid color. So that's a really neat way to play around with color and to play around with texture. Where we did not have texture on the wooden panel up here, it's a solid color there. So just play around with different levels of texture and different colors and you can really come up with some beautiful results. And I love how this one turned out. Same here. So we've got that heavy textured area here and that greenish gray paint settled into the shallow areas around the thicker texture. I just love how that looks. I think it looks really cool, really beautiful. I did add a little bit more green up here after I turned the camera off, but I was using the same technique that I had showed you guys. So this was where I sprayed water. I don't think I got as much water over here, so there's a harsher line, and I wanted it a little bit more fluid and organic over here, so I had sprayed the water. So that's also a good way to achieve a more organic, earthy look. So this one's really cool. So those are the results. I'm excited to see what you guys create, and feel free to drop any questions below. Thank you so much for watching. If you could like or subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would love that. I also have created a really fun Facebook group called the Texture Tribe. So I'll link that below, but go ahead and join that. That's where we're, fellow texture lovers are sharing our artwork, getting feedback. It's really fun. I've loved seeing what you guys have created. So have a follow over there as well, and I will see you guys soon.